Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 122 of the USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Ayersman, and so glad to have you with us today. So you may have noticed from the runtime of this episode that we've got a very different episode for you today, but one that I'm excited to share with you. So today we decided to try something a little bit different, and instead of the normal interview format where it's usually one, sometimes two guests and me in kind of a longer form interview situation, this time we're trying something different where if you're a fan of podcasts like Revisionist History or This American Life or maybe even Serial, we're doing something kind of in that style today where I'm going to kind of read a story and you'll hear some direct quotes from some pastors who are involved with today's topic, all about church planting. And more specifically, today we're going to look at the story of 3 USMB church plants, how they got started, and some kind of common denominators, some common factors that have led to their success, and honestly just some really cool stories about how God has been at work in a few different church plants. Now, to be honest, this is an article that I wrote for the most recent issue of Christian Leader magazine, which has probably just hit your mailbox this week. This article is one of the online-only articles, so if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, hey, you can just listen to it instead. I think it might be kind of a cool experience. So hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, let me know. Shoot me an email or let the USMB staff know. Maybe we can do more of these down the road. I think it's kind of a fun thing to switch up the format a little bit. So we'll hear a quick word from today's sponsor, and then we'll jump into a really unique episode of Lead Pods as we hear some great stories about USMB church plants.
MB Foundation provides biblical financial stewardship solutions to the Mennonite Brethren community. We assist individuals, pastors, churches, and organizations in their gathering, management, and distribution of financial resources for Christ and His kingdom. Our services include championing biblical stewardship, planned giving, loans, fund management, and investment certificates. We are ready to serve you. If you'd like to learn how financial stewardship solutions could benefit you, visit www.mbfoundation.com or call us today at 1-800-551-1547. MB Foundation is pleased to partner with USMB to bring you this episode of Lead Pods.
Each USMB church plant has a unique story. Although there are some common strategies and industry standard best practices when planting a church, each congregation is unique in the way that God orchestrates their history. Looking ahead, USMB continues to value church planting as a core commitment. As we dream and pray for more new churches to be planted, it's helpful to look at 3 current thriving MB church plants to see how they differ and where we can find common threads of success. All 3 demonstrate God's faithfulness in unique communities and individualized strategies.
Every church ought to be doing something with church planting. I mean, every church at some point was a planted church, like it was a church plant.
That's Brent Workington, the lead pastor of Ridgepoint Church, formerly First MB Church in Wichita, Kansas.
Being against church planting is like kind of being against yourself. You really can't be against John 3:16. You really can't be against church planting. Every church at one point was a church plant.
Ridgepoint, founded in 1943, is large and financially stable. But even with these advantages, it struggled to launch a new church. Ridgepoint first attempted a church plant in the mid-1980s, when a small group of leaders began a Bible study on the east side of Wichita, several miles away from the primary campus in West Wichita. East Wichita Fellowship saw some initial success, growing from 10 to 20 people to a peak of 75 meeting on the Wichita State University campus. They hired a pastor and saw some growth, but eventually the church closed.
They had good intentions. They started a Bible study. They went out to the east side. It just never gained traction. In the end, one of the critical lessons, they never had people who were part of the community, the church they were in. And it just never became a community church. I think people felt that. They never sustained a critical mass of core people, and they were always struggling financially. So it just didn't make it.
In November 2010, Ridgepoint leaders brought the idea of a church plant to the annual church family meeting. Despite passionate pleas from Workington and the church's leadership board, the vote to plant a church failed by literally one vote, the only failed congregational vote in Ridgepoint's 81-year history.
I was obviously disappointed, but I think we walked through it with a healthy posture. I just don't think it's the right time. That did, take some of the wind out of the sails for me. I wasn't mad. I wasn't giving up, but kind of lost as to how we're going to do this with what would be round 3.
Nearly a decade later, the dream came back to life when in 2019, the church was unexpectedly given a church building in South Wichita. Ridgepoint hired Andy Owen, former MB missionary and church planter in Thailand, to help in their church planting ventures. Kevin Friedberg was hired as the church planter, and through a series of miraculous events, Ridgepoint launched SouthLife Church in April 2021. SouthLife serves a lower-income neighborhood, which looks drastically different from the communities surrounding Ridgepoint, and has grown from an initial group of 25 to more than 100 people attending on a Sunday morning. And although it took 3 attempts and the path wasn't what Ridgepoint anticipated, Workington is thankful for God's provision.
But you have to trust the story. You have to trust that the Lord knows what he's doing. You have to choose to believe that it's always a not yet more than a no. I'm grateful, and God has been so good. God brought the right people at the right time. He pulled off some things that we couldn't have scripted ahead of time. For me, it's a reminder whenever you have a dream at a church and you stumble and you hit a wall, to just trust the story and not give up.
Just a few miles south from SouthLife Church is Lighthouse Church, another MB church plant in a similar but also very different area of Wichita. Lighthouse was founded in 1999 through World Impact, an urban ministry dedicated to evangelism and discipleship with a campus in Wichita, and in cooperation with the Southern District Conference. World Impact targeted geographical areas where they could intentionally serve those facing poverty, and they chose the Oaklawn neighborhood, known as a historically rough area with high crime and drug activity, for a church plant.
We've had a lot of homeless and just a lot of brokenness, people coming out of jails and drugs. And
that's Jerry Wilhite, the current Lighthouse pastor.
And so we try to help disciple and bring recovery to them and love them. And that's been one of our goals, is to, empower people to become leaders, fulfill the calling God has for them, no matter what their past is.
Local World Impact leaders Darren Busnitz and Matthew Penner were the first Lighthouse staff members, with a strategic focus on starting kids clubs. Steady growth with the kids ministry eventually brought in the parents, and soon adult Bible studies and small groups were formed. This group met for their first formal service in a community center around 2001. They hired Wilhite full-time in 2008 and moved into their own building in 2015. Lighthouse is intentional about meeting the physical needs of its neighbors. The church housed a free medical clinic for 10 years and ran a successful giving center where community members could get free food and clothing. Their annual turkey toss provided free Thanksgiving meals to 400 neighbors. When the church started, weekly attendance was around 25 to 30 people. That grew to nearly 100 people right before the COVID pandemic, and today their attendance is about 60 people. Wilhite admits he has struggled over the years with the concept of success, as their congregation hasn't necessarily grown numerically.
When I first came here, I was wanting to be in ministry so bad, and I'd been here about 2 weeks. And I was driving over to the church, and I just started crying. I said, Lord, what am I doing here? I wanted to be in ministry. I thought I was prepared. I was prepared for nothing like what I was running into here. And the Holy Spirit just gave me a word that said, I've given you authority to minister here. And so that really put gas in my tank. And I come to realize that I don't have to have tattoos all over, or piercings or whatever, that if you're real with people and you have the love of Jesus, our church, you can cross just any boundary with that. We just got to be faithful in what God's called us to be.
Wilhite has learned to be at peace with the fact that Lighthouse will never become a large congregation. He has dozens of stories of homeless neighbors coming to Lighthouse to be discipled, overcoming addiction, and paving a new way forward.
God's called me to be faithful, not, successful in the eyes of the world. And so we have a lot of opportunity to deal with people one-on-one, and people open up with us about their real problems. So I think that's kind of successful, having people to trust you with their life.
Phil Wiebe first felt a call toward church planting in 2012. At the time, he was working with a youth ministry at South Mountain Community Church in St. George, Utah.
Back in 2012, I felt Jesus putting on my heart to plant a church. I was working at South Mountain St. George at the time, and I just felt this tugging to plant a church. I didn't know what it meant.
After taking a break from work and ministry to process the unexpected death of his firstborn and returning to a different church in another role, Wiebe felt a new and stronger tug toward church planting. God gave Wiebe a vivid picture of the messes that he would encounter as a church planter, as well as what Wiebe describes as a strange but comforting experience. For 40 consecutive days, Wiebe received various types of confirmation from people in his life that he was supposed to plant a church, and in a very specific location.
I would say this is the only prophetic experience I've had in my Christian faith, but it was very clear and it was very specific. We were to plant a church in Tooele County, and it repeated. It was for 40 days straight. Something happened every day that was unexplainable, that was specific to planting a church in Tooele County. I kept a journal of it. It's pretty fascinating, actually. And it wasn't this, here's the cool part. It wasn't, Phil, you have to come plant the church. If you don't, it'll fail. It's, hey, Phil, I'm working on people's hearts in Tooele County. I'm inviting you to come be a part of it. I'm going to do it with or without you, but I'm inviting you to be a part of it.
This county provided unique challenges and opportunities for this new church plant, since the county was only 0.84% evangelical. The community was overwhelmingly involved with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, although a shift was coming. Large numbers of people had been leaving the LDS Church, and many of those became either atheist or agnostic. The newly formed Lakeview Church had a very specific goal: become the kind of place where these people will find a welcoming community and a safe place to explore faith.
Like, it's amazing how many people are like, they have been hurt and destroyed by the Mormon Church, but they want a relationship with God. They don't really know who God is or what he's all about.
Recent survey and census data shows the percentage of evangelical Christians in this county has now surpassed 1% of the population, and Lakeview Church has a significant part of that increase. Wiebe estimates that more than 300 people in the area now consider themselves Christians because of the outreach of Lakeview. The church launched with around 85 people, grew to about 240 in 2019, and recently had more than 500 attend a special 5-year anniversary service. To capitalize on the growth, Lakeview planted a second campus in Grantsville, Utah in 2021. As Workington says, church planting involves learning to trust the story. Whether ministering to former LDS members in Utah or lower-income neighborhoods in Kansas, church planters discover unexpected hurdles along the way. However, there seems to be at least one consistent variable among successful church plants.
The right way to do the church plant is what is needed in the area God has put you in. You know, whenever you go to a lake and you fish, because Jesus said, I'm going to teach you to be fishers of men. That's what being a disciple is. I don't know fishermen who go to the lake with no strategy or no plan. Like, if they want to catch freshwater fish, they go to a freshwater lake. You certainly don't go and bait for tuna in a freshwater lake. So there's strategy to it. And when it comes to church planting, I feel like it's the same way. Actually, as a church as a whole, like, unless you know what you're fishing for, you're just on a cruise ship going across the pond.
Ultimately, each church plant is a testament to God's faithfulness and creativity. Each congregation has a vital role to play in God's eternal story. All right. Well, hey, that was kind of fun. Thank you for being willing to do a little bit of a different episode this week. Maybe we'll try this again down the road. If you liked it, let us know somehow if you prefer this or the kind of longer interview format so we can give you what best serves you. We'd love to hear from you. And speaking of church planting, I mentioned this at the top, but we encourage you to check out the most recent issue of Christian Leader magazine. It just came out this past week, and that is what this whole issue is all about, with some really great stories. Again, examples of ways that God is at work, even asking the hard questions about whether church planting is even worth it in the first place. Spoiler alert, of course it is. So I encourage you to check it out. If you get a print copy in the mail, great. I'm sure your church could help you get one if you don't currently receive it but would like to. Or you can also check out christianleadermag.com for all those stories. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again so much for listening for this different episode this week. We have a more normal episode for you next time. So hope you have a great couple weeks, and we'll see you next time here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.